Back to the individual, because it sounds like the world is a better place if more people have the ability to embrace creativity.
Yeah.
It's a richer, more dynamic kind of in existence. So, and we've talked about it basically being there for everyone. Maybe harder for some than others, but what is the spark? What is the spark that ignites change to get someone to move towards being more creative? Is it something that you can do yourself? Is it something that somebody externally needs to do for you?
Yeah, it's a good way to phrase the question, because what's the spark? The spark is inspiration, I say. Like, if you want to be creative, you first have to be inspired in some way. I'm going to try it. That's the spark, and that comes from inspiration. So the spark is inspiration. That's why when I do creativity talks, I try to do it in an inspirational way. I do not believe that you can have a very structured, this is how you become more creative and the bullet points, blah, blah, blah. No one's going to go there from there to be inspired to be creative. Now, like an engine, you have the spark. The thing that starts the combustion, right? And after that, then it just continues, right? It becomes, and that's the thing with creativity. When you spark with invention, you start creating, you create the spark yourself, because you get inspired by the idea you just had. And then it becomes almost a self-fulfilling, it's a perpetual motion. One idea triggers another one, and then suddenly you are creative. So that's why people in Singapore say, oh, our school system sucks, we cannot be creative. I say, don't bother about your school system. Your school system taught you how to get a lot of knowledge. Now I just need to give you that spark. Just go out, forget about go out and travel the world, meet interesting people, find what your passion in life is. That will be the spark. You can take all the knowledge you learn from school and apply that to what you decide. It's not that school killed your creativity; it hid your creativity, which is a totally different thing. It's still there.
What's your equation for that? Knowledge plus ideas?
For me, the definition is idea is knowledge plus information or inspiration or input, something new that comes into you. And then you combine that with the knowledge that you have. You cannot be creative unless you have knowledge. And that is like a very young person with all this energy and all this inspiration, but that's not knowledge. It doesn't have the potential to be creative. But of course, young people overcompensate that by having so much inspiration. Like a young kid, I want to do this, it's so curious and new. But the most creative people are the old people who still think like who still are curious. They are by far the most creative people in the world.
Because they have more knowledge and experience
and they are still questioning how things can be done, questioning themselves, curious about how other people are looking at, asking questions and things like that, like kids do. But I would never trust, like if you ask me, I have two persons, one experienced person, one unexperienced person, who would you bet on? I would bet on the experienced one who is still questioning things.
And for you, in terms of being inspired, and you've obviously thought and work in this area almost exclusively, what's the most inspiring, great idea that you respect?
I don't want to say the most inspiring. The most inspiring. I like the concept. I like Gandhi's idea of making a democratic India. You know, that for me, because it shows that innovation doesn't have to be a machine or an idea. Revolutions generally I like, because it's like, let's try this, let's do something, an unbloody revolution, make it democratic. 500 million people at that time, 500 million people created democracy. That's an amazing thought, and it happened, and he died. But he managed to do that. Who would have thought? So that's my favorite idea. And my favorite Gandhi quote on innovation is, he described the process, he says, on how an idea gets accepted. He said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And that's my answer. But favorite idea is actually the one I've seen recently. So I saw one yesterday, where you take my definition of idea, you take two previously known things, you combine them. You know, you take, that's my definition. There are no new ideas. Everything is just combinations. So I saw one who took the concept of a sink and combined it with the concept of a urinal. So sink and urinal combined becomes sink and urinal, right? So it works like this. You go up to the urinal and you pee, right? But then on top of that, here is the sink. So the water comes in, you wash your hands, the water flies in there and then onto the urinal and flushes the urinal, so you only need half the water. But more importantly, you need half the floor space. And even more importantly, half the water, half the floor space. And the guys will button their pants with clean hands, which they don't know. And you hear that say, why, first of all, why didn't I think of that? Second of all, urinals have been around for more than 100 years. And there are thousands of people in the urinal and in the sink industry and in the bathroom industry. And I say, after 100 years, why didn't anyone think of this before? They just invented this. And I say, you hear it, give me one reason why we shouldn't do this. It makes total sense.
Another question which just occurred to me. I work with a number of people in different industries, and a common concern for the future is that the world as we know it is just not sustainable.
Oh, yes.
If you take one industry like the automobile industry. It's a wonderful success story, the automobile, for many, many ways. But its future is just, there's a huge question, the energy question, that we, you know, and it's easy to think that the world must certainly be in decline because we don't have any of the answers to the problems that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah,
so do you believe in man's ingenuity?
I believe in man's ingenuity, but I don't believe in man's ability to change quickly enough. It's kind of like Titanic. Do I believe that the Titanic can turn? Yes. Do I think it can turn quickly enough? No. So I still think we're heading for the iceberg. I'm very pessimistic actually, because what people don't understand is how quickly the world is changing. The number of the sad thing, the negative side effect of suddenly the poor world getting its act together and suddenly becoming much more bigger. The way they are getting richer is much faster than the speed of innovation to get things more environmentally friendly. And there are really nice technologies for cheap, abundant solar energy, for example, but is it quick enough to do? And some of them are just not quick enough, like what the tuna fish is a good example. The most depressing thing for me right now is to go to a Chinese restaurant, all-you-can-eat seafood buffet, and then imagine 200 Chinese cities like that, and 2,000 restaurants in each of those cities, and suddenly they didn't exist 10 years ago, and now they all want tuna fish. And there's not enough tuna. And the fact that some of us say maybe we should not eat tuna, the number of us who stop eating tuna, the number of people who start eating tuna is much bigger. Yes. So the tuna is going to go extinct. And then we say, well, when there's almost no one left, they will stop. No, we don't. And apparently, in Japan now, they're fishing the last tuna and freezing it, because they know when it is extinct, the price will go up. That's how human creativity works. So I love the potential of human creativity, and that, if you look at it that way, we have to put so much more emphasis on creativity, get much more people to think much more about changing things, and if you ask me, we have to have governments to say, do we need people to put their creative capacity on making Angry Birds, right? Or on solving real issues. I'm not saying doing Angry Bird is wrong. I'm saying governments should say, because right now governments are promoting entrepreneurship, which is great. They didn't do that before. But if I were a government, I would promote sustainable and moral entrepreneurship. It's not enough to get people to start companies. You need governments who say, start. If we were living on an island, and I'm the old wise man on the island, it's not enough to say, stand up and do what you want, create things. Let's create things that make it better on the island. And governments are not saying that.
But social entrepreneurship is growing with the...
But not fast enough.
Yeah, not fast enough.
Yeah, that's my point.
A new form.
Yeah, so I'm actually, it's a very interesting question. It's depressing when you think about and you see how quickly the it's what you call exponential. It grows faster and faster, which makes it more difficult to catch up.
Yeah.
We have to change faster and faster.